Hey Terry, checking in. Okay, we're gonna get started in just a minute. See if we can't get a few more live people to show up. And I look tired. Yeah, pretty long day. It's been a little bit of a long few weeks actually. But we're gonna come in and check in on this, and I'm gonna hustle off to bed here in a little while. But wanted to get in and check in on this storm. Let's go ahead and get this up satellite view for you. If you're watching live, go ahead and leave a comment, as Terry did. And we'll get started very momentarily. We're going to be talking about this storm. We're going to cover as much as we can tonight. Sorry, it's been tough for me to get on here with a lot going on. Of course, I also got to work a full-time job in the meantime. Okay, if you're watching live, go ahead and leave a comment. If you're watching later, leave a comment. Let me know how you're doing. Let me know where you're watching from. We're going to cover this storm today. Here it is. That's the storm that we may be seeing as a hurricane next week. We'll talk about that. All right. Got a few people watching tonight, so appreciate you checking in. I'm going to go ahead and bring the music down. And we're going to get started for the evening. How's everybody doing out there? Bearded Weatherman. We're going to talk about this storm as we see it right here. This is a storm that the National Hurricane Center is currently discussing in their outlook. Here it is. 80% chance of formation in the next week. Now we're up to 48, or in the next 48 hours, a medium 50% chance of formation. Good, organized system here. Not yet a tropical. We'll talk about that in a second. Got Carol checking in from Fort Myers. Obviously, going to be watching something like this very closely. Hopefully, you made it through Ian okay. I'm going to mention some similarities, but I don't want anybody to start panicking and think that's what's going to happen with this storm. We don't know that yet. There's a lot of what ifs. There's a lot of differences between the two. So again, I don't want to create any kind of panic out there. I just want to go ahead and get you some updates, as I know you're probably anxious to see them there in the state of Florida, especially where a lot of you folks are. Okay, we'll just talk about the situation right now. So you see this storm system, this complex of convection, whatever you want to call it, a organized convection, but you also see here right on top of it this ridging, and that ridging is generally means that there's favorable upper level winds in the environment, which gives this system a chance to develop. You can actually see that here in our mid-level water vapor shot. You don't see much dry air or fast-moving air. You see a little bit of dry over here. Most of the dry air is up here. We'll talk about that and what kind of impact that might have. But these yellow shades are very dry air. Green areas are where a lot of moisture is. This is called a water vapor image, a satellite image that shows us where high degrees of moisture content are. Also look just a little bit higher up in the upper levels, and you see, for the most part, around this storm right here, not much as far as upper level winds. This is what you would see, like these blue areas. There's a little bit over here, a little bit over here, a lot over here. This yellow area is very fast moving air, very dry air, or I should say very dry air, typically associated with some kind of upper level winds. And these are bad for tropicals, so that is that situation as far as the meteorology is concerned. So we're going to check in on a few models. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but again, 80% chance for development. right now you see the cone. Most of it is over the west coast of Florida, Gulf Coast of Florida. So you do see down here at the southern periphery, that's close to the southwest Florida area. So a lot of uncertainty as to where this system might go. We'll actually start right here with some spaghetti models. So this is called the Ensemble Prediction System. It's a ensemble or a blend of a bunch of different models, from the American model, the GFS, to the Canadian CMC model. Cheers everybody out there tonight. Just got off work, sipping a little mineral water. But you see the red line here, this bright red line, that's basically the center of all of these different spaghetti tracks, right? You see some of them down here, you see some over here. And that's generally the center of where this particular model is saying the averages of those tracks. So essentially it's saying the best chance right now is somewhere impacts there in the Big Bend area. As of today, as of the latest afternoon run, this is 18 Zulu, about 2 o'clock on the East Coast PM, the 25th of August. So that's the first suite of models we're going to look at. The next one I'm going to look at here is going to be, let's see, we're going to get the Euro involved here. The Euro has been on this storm for the last several days. Pretty reliable Euro we like to look at. The latest from the afternoon doesn't go out that far, but I will show you kind of what it's saying. And here's the low right here. Here's Saturday, so we're out till tomorrow now. Still kind of spinning around. Now it's starting to develop a closed circulation, very unorganized, still very messy. And then you start to see a little bit more of that isobar, that closed isobar, start to form around the system on Monday, or pardon me, Sunday morning. This is 8 o'clock a.m. Eastern time. And then continuing to go forward, so that's why you see that 48-hour chance, the possibility there at 48 hours for development from the National Hurricane Center, 50%. Continuing to kind of spin, and then by Tuesday or late night Monday, early Tuesday into Tuesday morning, now the system has moved off of the Yucatan, starting to enter the Gulf of Mexico. Very warm waters there, obviously, so we would expect some strengthening to occur, as you see there, with the 1,000 millibar stamp on it. Now this is as far out as this afternoon run goes. This is from this morning, and you see it goes a little bit further. So it moves it up there Tuesday. Now it's moving it up a little bit further, and this is by Tuesday night. Here it's 8 p.m. Eastern on the East Coast, continuing on into early morning Wednesday, and then by Wednesday morning also showing Big Bend impact, maybe north of Tampa there, for a possible hurricane. At this point, a 993 millibar system is going to be a tropical storm. So that's for Wednesday morning, according to the Euro. Go ahead and look at what the GFS has. So this is the latest GFS from the afternoon. You can see, all right, here's our system starting to form by Sunday morning. So again, you see that closed isobar circulation there, meaning potentially a tropical depression. That's how you define a tropical depression, is a closed circulation around the center of the low. It looks like somebody just sent some stars my way, so that's very much appreciated. Thank you, Jillian. Bravo Zulu to you, and if you want to support the page, you can always send a few stars my way. That's always appreciated. I don't do this really for any money. All right, as we go forward, here we are Tuesday morning, showing 987 millibar. So that's close to a Category 1 hurricane, maybe a top-end tropical storm that the American model is showing. So that's a little bit stronger. And you can see it does move it further to the west than the consensus EPS ensemble prediction, which had it there in the Big Bend, and the Euro, which had it a little bit further to the south. So here's the EPS There's the Euro. Now the American taking it in to the Panhandle by Wednesday morning. So, you got basically this range here right now between these main global models in the ensemble prediction system as far as a forecast, with potentially a hurricane making landfall Wednesday morning according to the GFS American. So you have good agreement between the models now. Yeah, cheers everybody. I'm sipping a little mineral water over here in the West Coast tonight. All right. So let's look at a couple other things. So if you want to look for, is this, what do we look for to determine, is this actually a tropical depression? And we look at something like this. This is called a scatterometer. It's satellite-derived clouds, satellite-derived winds, measurements taken from a satellite to kind of give you a sense of what's going on. And the latest, you don't see as much wind barbs. These are westerly winds here anytime you see that. But you're going to be looking for a southerly wind component around here on the eastern side, a north to northwesterly component there, and then southeasterly component. And if you look, that's counterclockwise circulation, right, around it. Well, we don't have any wind readings up here. I was looking at it earlier. You don't see any of these more northerly winds that you want to see on that western side. You'd have to kind of be able to read these, but if you, real quick, just to give you a key for this. So if you have a wind bar looks like this. If it's on the left side, that wind is going this way. So it's always like on the left side, that wind is going that way. See what I'm saying? So if the wind barb, as it's called, is facing this way, then that's that is a easterly wind. The wind always is measured from which, the direction from which it comes, right? So again, maybe a little in the weeds, but bottom line, what we're looking for is that type of circulation, a counterclockwise circulation that you see around a low pressure system. And once we see that, then the National Hurricane Center, if they find evidence of that, they will then name this a tropical depression. They will classify that system as a tropical depression. We don't see that yet, so we don't have a tropical depression as of yet. I see Linda checking in on YouTube tonight. So I have recently been streaming on YouTube. Linda, welcome. She says, hopefully we'll be fine on the East Coast by Daytona. Well, I'll give you some more thoughts on what I think is going to happen here in a second, but I showed you kind of the range so far that we're looking at, which is a little bit further north of Daytona, but that's just too early to tell. But welcome, Linda. Everybody welcome Linda to the YouTube chat. Looks like she's the only one over there. But I just started streaming on YouTube. By the way, if you if you got the app on your TV, your smart TV or something, and you want to watch, like on your couch or something, and Facebook I think has it too, but it might be a little easier if you watch it, using YouTube on your TV. So that's just if you want to kick back, relax, watch the Bearded Weatherman on your TV, that's a good way to do it. All right, Jillian says, I'm getting ready for my birthday party for her son. I believe that's, for her son's birthday party tomorrow, but she's here. So thank you for joining here, Jillian, with me, and hopefully you get all that preparation done for your son's birthday. Happy birthday to him. Tiffany says, checking in from Pensacola area. Yeah, so obviously anybody there in the state of Florida right now is watching this storm. Pretty much everybody on the Gulf Coast as well is going to be watching it, because these things tracks do tend to change sometimes. But again, thank you to Linda over there watching along from Daytona, my old hometown over in Volusia County. I've got Adam Lucio, the storm chaser of note, a good friend of the page. He's checking in. high-res hurricane models going bonkers with this. Globals are like, nope, we'll be interested to see which suite caves to the other. My money's always that they'll cave to the euro. Call me biased, but that's... I mean, the euro's picked up on it since Wednesday. I mean, it kind of waffled back and forth, but yeah, I mean... Yeah, the globals say nope. So let's talk about intensity. That's a good segue. So, all right. Well, what again, I showed you the globals, showed you what they forecasted, which is the GFS, maybe a hurricane by landfall on the Panhandle by Wednesday. Of course, that track will change. It's somewhere in that area, at least for now, is what the American model is forecasting. So 984 millibars. That's right there. Top end tropical storm or category 1 hurricane, somewhere in there. And then the euro is a little bit less aggressive on its intensity, showing a top end, basically a tropical storm at landfall, but further south there, south of the Big Bend, north of Tampa by Wednesday morning. So tale of two models. A little bit less intense for the euro, but that's not that big of a difference. So let's look at Adam says King Euro. Yeah, I mean it's my experience pretty reliable. Not perfect, obviously. There's no such thing in forecast modeling, but pretty good from my experience. And so let's look at this. So what factors would come into play here? So we all know it's very warm water there in the Gulf, right? We could look at an analysis of that. We could say, okay, look at how warm the water is. Nobody's at has any delusions about how warm that water is out there. It's bath water, right? So you look at 31 Celsius. That's right up there, about 87, 88 degrees Fahrenheit. Almost 90 degrees. It's bath water. It's very warm water, but that's not the full picture. It's not just about sea surface temperature. It's more so about something called ocean heat content, which I've covered quite a bit on here, and I'll do so again. So this is a polar orbiting analysis, or a polar. It's been a long day, guys. Polar orbiting. I'm having a little sip here. Sometimes I get a little nervous doing this. A polar orbiting satellite. Maybe you can see that, polar blended, which measures ocean heat content, OHC, or basically the amount of energy available in that body of water for a tropical system in this case. And it's measured there in kilojoules per centimeter minus squared. I'm not sure if you see that, but that's the physics behind it is this type of measurement. It's kilojoules is a measurement of energy, right? So it looks at that, and basically what it's looking at is not just the surface of the ocean. It looks at the top, say, 100 meters of the ocean surface, about 300 feet. So how much heat is stored in there? How much energy is stored in that whole column? Okay? So even though you see, even though on the previous analysis we saw very warm water, almost 90 degrees, in these areas you notice that the measurements are not quite as high. The content is not quite there because it's closer into shore, it's a little more shallow. Okay? You want to get a lot of water that's for that tropical system to suck up, to absorb and to use for its energy to strengthen. Now you definitely have that down here. I'm going to get back on my black pen so you can see. But you definitely have that in abundance down in the Caribbean Basin. That's kind of where it's forming, right? It's forming basically what's called the Central American Gyre, the CAG. It's this circulation of wind that goes in through these two kind of skinnier peninsulas here in Central America, and it just sets up the difference. There's a circulation basically between the land and the ocean, the temperature difference that causes a pressure difference, and that causes wind flow. So you get these CAG or Central American gyre storms, and this is kind of what we're seeing with this guy. So it's definitely using all that energy right now over here to feed it, and that's why you're seeing all that convection firing up on the satellite, right? You see all this all this in here. See the blacks, the reds. That's very cold. Minus 75, minus 65 Celsius. Cold cloud tops in the top of those storms, right? 35, 45,000 feet up. And so the colder the cloud top, the higher up you know that cloud top is, right? So that's what the satellite measures. So you're getting a lot of convection in there, and that's being, it's absorbing all of that heat energy in the ocean right now. But as you go in toward these areas, you don't see it as quite as much. You do see some high values in here, right? There's still some high values, these aquamarines, but the highest values are in toward the middle of the Gulf, what's called the loop current. This is a current that draws up very warm water into this area, and that is classically used by very strong storms like Katrina, Rita. Storms like that have used this loop current to rapidly intensify and become very devastating Category 5 hurricanes. Well, we don't quite have that kind of energy there. But so that's one factor. Okay, so let's stop there. We'll talk about that's one factor. Again, very warm and very high heat ocean content over here towards the central Gulf. Not quite as much over here, and not quite as much up there. Okay. Now let's look at the other factors. So we always look at these two main factors when we talk about the intensity of a hurricane or intensity of a storm. Let's go back to tropical tidbits. Of course, great tropical tidbits. Everybody loves it. And let's look at what is the other factor at play. So we'll zoom in here, and we're going to get our upper dynamics. So we're looking at upper level now. So let's look at go back real quick. We'll just refresh ourselves. Where's this storm at? Okay, we're waiting on the latest run here at 0 Zulu. So a lot of us weather watchers, weather geeks are going to be sitting there waiting for each of these runs to come in. We're probably not going to get much sleep. We're just continuously watching for each run to see if there's consistency, to see what the next model run tells us. So this is just kind of the life of a hurricane or a weather geek like me and others like Adam too, I'm sure. And I will go back and just address these questions in 1 second in the chat. But here we go. So let's look at it. There's our low that's forming, and it's this Central American gyre low. There it is now. See, you've got that circulation, right? Here it is. There's the gyre, the gyro like circle, right? Kind of you get the picture on what that means, and then you go forward in time. There's your low, okay? So there it is. It hasn't moved much. It's still spinning around, using a lot of that energy over here. Okay, we're going into Monday. Now we got a closed low, so potentially a tropical depression by Sunday and Monday. And there it goes up towards the Big Bend, right north of Tampa. So that's the low. Just want to show you that because I'm about to make the screen a lot more busy for you when I show you wind shear. So wind shear is, the technical definition is any change in wind direction or speed. Okay, so that wind direction change could be at the surface, it could be in the upper levels, higher up in altitude, it could be a speed change, whether or not it be between two areas horizontally or vertically. This is a big time hazard for aviation, so we look out for this in aviation. We look at for wind shear detection when we take off and land where I work at the airline. In any case, basically what we have here, we're showing areas of very high changes and also higher wind speeds in these areas. So here are your red areas. Here's very high wind speeds. Here's very low wind speeds. Okay, you see the white, here's the aquamarine. This is very low value, so there's very little wind shear in these areas. Okay, but much more up here. All right, and so that's where our system is right now, in a low wind shear environment. So it has the opportunity to start to strengthen. And that's why the National Hurricane Center has forecasted such. Let's keep going. There's our low. Now we've probably got, well, we're getting close, not yet maybe, to having a tropical depression at this time. Again, you still see, here's Sunday morning, 12Z is 8 a.m. on the East Coast, Eastern Time. That's always 4 hours back in daylight saving time is Zulu. From basically it's the time there in England, Greenwich, England. And again, you see all in here very low wind shear values going into Sunday. So we're seeing some strengthening. We're seeing some organization around it. Now we see, keep going forward. Now you do see it moving a little bit. And notice there's a little bit of wind shear going on over here, right? Okay, so you see 1003. Remember, the lower values are the higher, the more intense the storm is. So you want to see lower values than that for a stronger system. Continues to stay about that intensity, about that strength. Now it's deepening a little bit. Notice got a little less wind shear over, right? Over most of it. Now it's starting to deepen it. Now it's down to 1001 millibars. It's strengthening a little bit. Lower values, lower levels of pressure, air pressure, mean typically stronger systems. Now again, now we're down to 995. We see still a lot of southerly shear here, a lot of northerly shear, but this is also associated with the system itself. But you see that in a lot of areas in the storm, a little bit lighter wind shear values. So definitely being sheared, definitely being affected by it, but able to draw some of that very warm water we showed you. Here's that area we were just showing you, right? Loop current area in there. Well, that's drawing up that very warm ocean water and using it to strengthen a little bit. Now it's lowering, but staying about bottom end 993, which again, that's a tropical storm. So, but you see what's going on. You see a lot of wind shear over most of this storm, and that will definitely cause a storm to not be able to intensify. It will not be able to strengthen much because it's getting pushed over it. I've shown this graph. I've done this many times. I'll do it one more time, but you can visualize a tropical system. It's also called a barotropic system in meteorology. As here's our thunderstorm cloud, right? We can anvil top. Here's the updraft column. Air flows upward in this column, okay? Now, when there's any wind shear on this system, when there's any winds pushing this aside, that causes it to do this, right? Now it looks like this. Now it looks like a supercell thunderstorm, doesn't it, Adam? If you're still there. But it does not allow that warm, moist air, that energy for that tropical system to be drawn up into the center of the storm. Think of a hurricane. It's got the eye. That's all that air that's flowing upward and then outward around as outflow around the periphery of the storm. This is what you need. That's classic. That's no good. It's being pushed aside. It can't draw up the air, therefore it can't create outflow, therefore it can't regenerate itself, therefore it's going to die and weaken. So this is what's occurring on that wind shear forecast, okay? So that's what we hope, right? We hope that continues to be the forecast and that the system is not, or is affected and will not be able to strengthen much. You see this troughing, you see this big U over here? Okay, that's bad for a tropical as well. See all that troughing over here? Not good for tropicals. That causes very fast wind speeds in the upper levels, okay? What you need for tropicals is more of this. See this ridge here? See how light the winds are around it? See this ridge here? See how light the winds are? That's what you need for a tropical, and that's not the forecast that this model is giving us. Now let's look over at the GFS and get a picture of what it's saying. So there's our low. Here we are Monday. Now you see the shear is there, not quite in the same direction as the Euro is showing. So what kind of impact will that have? And that will, you see gives it a little bit less wind shear over it. See, there's less wind shear over this whole storm. See that? Therefore, it allows it to strengthen a little bit. See, it's 987 here, 984. There's still quite a bit of shear going on, especially this southerly shear over here. See these red areas? But there's not quite as much over it with the GFS American. So that's why the GFS allows for this more strength. You also notice this trough isn't quite as elongated, or is not quite as the amplitude is not quite as great, so it's not as deep. See this trough? It's kind of skinny. The wavelength is shorter, right? Well, that will mean less wind shear as well. So there's two forecasts right now from the main globals that we look at the most. Both of them show some type of system in the Gulf next week. Both of them show impacts for Florida, north of Tampa through the Panhandle, middle of the week. Both of them do not, at this point, show much strengthening going on. Now, this is I didn't have the time to get the meteorological data from Ian together, so I can't really make associations with it. If this storm, let's say if it takes a little bit more of a jog south, okay, that means it's going to be over warmer water than it would be if it went further north, okay? So it would have a little bit more energy. It also may not be quite as impacted by shear over here by middle of next week, okay? Now again, I'm not here to scare anybody. I'm not here to cause panic. I'm not trying to compare this storm to Ian. I don't have the data in front of me to compare that. So, I can't say that there's an analog here or a direct comparison. But what I can say is that if this system has a little less time and maybe jogs a little bit further to the right here, or a little less time to be sheared, I should say, and more time or has some more of that warmer water to deal with down here in the Keys, for example, and those areas, then we could be looking at a stronger hurricane than what we're seeing so far. The models for Ian did have it going further north initially, and then it jogged down south, unfortunately causing quite a bit of havoc down and loss, tragically, loss of life for Fort Myers and Southwest Florida. So again, I am not here to compare these two storms and make a direct comparison. I am here to tell you that models can change, and that cone that the National Hurricane Center puts out over the forecast track is there for a reason, and also to remember that can also jog a little bit as we go out. So we're going to know a lot more about this system in the next couple of days. So I'm not trying to say I think this will be an Ian. I don't think that, actually. I'm just saying that this could be a more powerful hurricane if in fact it takes a more rightward track. I don't have the data in front of me, and I don't think the conditions are necessarily there as far as the meteorology, at least so far. As far as what's being forecasted, the Euro typically really pretty reliable. So again, I just always caution everyone to be ready, to be prepared for that something like that, like a major hurricane potentially. I don't think that's the case here, but look, beat the lines, don't panic. But it never hurts to be prepared. Have those preparations ready so that when the time comes, if one of these systems does impact your area, you're ready to go. Okay, so that's all I got. I mean, again, I usually favor the Euro, so my thinking is somewhere in these areas. Potentially could be a hurricane, potentially somewhere in these areas. Could be further west like the American, could be a little bit further south. However, as you see the line I'm kind of drawing, this is where we're thinking right now. This is where the models are kind of honing in on. And you don't have to take my word for it. It's the same. I just drew the same lines that the National Hurricane Center did without even looking at theirs closely. So that's why they show this cone. That's a pretty large area, isn't it? How many was that? 500 miles, I think, or something? That's quite a distance. We could measure it on Google Maps, but I'm too tired. I'm not going to do that. But look, the bottom line is this is a huge area, a huge swath that potentially could be impacted by what we don't quite know. My hunch is probably a hurricane, maybe Cat 1, but it could be stronger, okay? So have those preparations in place, okay? Don't panic, but have them in place. Tiffany says, has a cone come out? I just showed you the cone right there. That's a cone. But we don't have that forecast. We don't have the same type of cone you might see. That is a cone, though. as far as their uncertainty. We don't have the same kind of cone or forecast track cone you would have with like this storm here, Franklin, which again stays well out to sea, no threat to land, Franklin. Looking at the models over the last few hours, I don't see any other threats on the horizon except for this particular system that we're looking at. So that's why I'm kind of focusing on it. All right. Let's finish up, see if we got any more comments. Adam had to jump off. Thank you for the thumbs up there, Adam. Always appreciate your support. Adam has a pretty large following in the weather community, storm chasing community. So he is his support and his him engaging is pretty awesome. It's for a little page like mine, that's a pretty cool deal. All right, and Jillian, I don't know if I thanked you earlier, but Bravo Zulu to you for the stars you you sent. Thank you. I'm tired. I'm getting off here. Thank you guys. I will continue to post about it. All right. I'm going to continue to update you. Don't worry. I'll hop on here sometime tomorrow, probably